Question number 2. Mail-in ballots and signature gathering to get on general election ballots by circumventing the convention system are hot topics today. What is your position on these issues?
And that's me.
Yes.
The first thing I would say is both Juliene and I are convention candidates. That probably speaks the loudest. There's problems, I believe, when an individual can spend money and get on a ballot. Because, first of all, they don't really, we don't all know everyone in the district. Nonetheless, there's an incentive there. Those that gather signatures are paid by the signature. If I was getting signatures, I would become very adept at getting your signature because I'm incentivized by money, and that's probably one of the biggest pieces of heartburn that I had over the whole thing. So to make it short and sweet, the convention, the caucuses is the way for candidates to rise to the ballot.
One of my favorite things about the convention system is that it makes sure, or it helps ensure that it's educated voters, delegates, who are choosing the people that represent them. Because regardless of when somebody has their name placed on the ballot with a party next to their name, they are tied to that party. And I think it is essential that the party be able to approve of that association. And so I think the signature gathering path for becoming a candidate should be done away with, and it should be that the party is able to choose the system that they want to use to have candidates next to them. And with, do I have time for mail-in balloting?
I'll let you know.
Okay. We just had a bill up at the House where they were trying to increase election security, right? They were going to have the drop-off ballot boxes be monitored, and one push against it was that it's too expensive, but I think having secure elections is one of the most important ways for a government to spend money.
Okay, thank you. Next question for Juliene. What do you feel is the proper role of government, and what is the purpose of government?
The brief answer is as small as possible, is my simple answer. The government is supposed to exist to mediate the space where people exist together. So I like the saying of, where your rights end where my rights begin, right? And so government's there to help mediate issues like that. And unfortunately, as our population has grown, as the populations have become denser, cities have gotten bigger, we've seen government grow. I would really like to shift the system back to a small government and large social power where people get along with their neighbors, or people can at least speak to one another and solve disputes themselves. That would be the ideal. So government takes care of some very basic things. They take care of defense and ensuring property rights and life and those basic things there. But it can be a lot smaller than it is.
Okay, Jim?
So, first of all, government is too big. Trying to turn this down so it doesn't boom so much. I don't know why mine does. I'll just leave it off then. Government is too large, and with the short time to answer the question, what I would say is we are getting to a point where we are teaching young people that government is the solution to all of their issues. And that's a real problem, because when they grow up perceiving when I've got an issue and a frustration or there's a wrong and I need justice, to constantly turn to government is the wrong approach to teaching them. They need, and all of us need to learn some self-reliance, to be able to feel like we can depend on ourselves, our families, and our communities first, and to stop expecting government to solve every problem, to address every issue, because it's a bit of a beast that the more we feed it, the bigger it gets, and the day will come when all we do is work for the government, and the government in turn somehow takes care of us. That's a lousy model, and I'm for smaller government and for an effort to promote reducing the size of government in a way that people know they're doing something that's going to make them happy.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is a two-part question, and we'll ask two different questions. We'll do the first question first and then the second. Education is always a hot topic, and every candidate seems to want more funding for education without specifying for what and how the funding will resolve lower reading and mathematics skills and a growing trend of anti-American sentiment amongst our youth. So first question, what is your vision for education, and do you believe that more funding by raising our taxes is necessary? I believe it's Jim.
When I hear education, I like to think learning. And learning takes place in a whole array of places. The home is the best place for learning, and that's where it starts. And so I would answer by saying I'm a big advocate of school choice. A parent that's got a child that they love, children that they love, don't want to send them somewhere that is going to teach them contrary to what they've been valuing and what they believe to be good and right. So a parent needs the option to say, this is what is best for my child. Continually funding and saying that learning is attached to money is also not teaching the right thing. Utah has one of the highest value when it comes to education, because for the amount of money we spend per student, which is not the highest, we have a much higher degree of understanding and learning that's taking place. So that demonstrates that it's not directly tied to money, and we need to not expect that more money means more learning and better education. So one, I'm for choice, and two, I don't want to see it always tied to the solution being money.
Okay, Juliene?
Yeah, one thing I'm grateful for that came out of the COVID era was when parents brought their children home and had to educate them at home, whether that was Zoom or, some people just pulled out and homeschooled. They saw imperfections in the school system, and that began a movement in the culture towards increasing this school choice. We've seen that crop up in a lot of different areas, and Utah's had a lot of charter schools for a really long time. My oldest son goes to a charter school, and I'm really happy with that option. And there are private schools, and there's homeschooling as well. And there's a program called the Utah Fits All Scholarship, where homeschool and private school children can receive funding from the state in a lottery system, and it's not open to everybody. It's a very small portion of interested people who are able to get this funding from the state, but it helps with the costs of educating the children. And I am a big fan of that program. I would like to see it available to anyone who's interested. I know it does get a little bit tricky. There are some parents who really do not want the state in their educating of their children at all. And so they, aren't interested in taking that money. But I think it's a great program so far.
Thank you. The next question is, do you believe that reforms in education are necessary to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical theory, critical race theory, and other Marxist ideas are rooted out of our education system and not merely rebranded and continued? What would these reforms look like?
I went to the Ogden City Council meeting last Tuesday, and at that meeting, during public comment, it was about 2.5 hours of people getting up and giving comment, talking about how they, wanted ICE out. And there were multiple teachers and school representatives who talked about how the students are coming to school terrified. And, it's interrupting the school day, it's preventing them from learning and all of these things. And I remember thinking how much I wished the adults in those children's lives were offering what comfort they could, whether that was, I don't know that that's the teacher's place, but certainly I think the parents should be educating their children better to know that, they don't need to be this afraid. And so I think the start of any reforms would be, I like that there's a revamped civic class coming in a year or two, where if I'm understanding it right, high school students need to take a whole year of civic education instead of just a semester. And if that curriculum is set up correctly, I think that can go a long way. It will take a couple of years to pull out of this mess we're in right now, but I think we can do it, and we just keep, electing good people to the school board who pick good curriculums.
Okay, Mr. Alvey.
First of all, no parent should send a child into a setting where they feel like they're a fish in a barrel. And no adult should be allowed to politicize the learning process of our children. We should be absolutely offended that anyone is doing that. School should be the basics. They should be teaching skills in, like it or not, my age says reading, writing, and arithmetic. And when things start to become political, those children are being groomed. And that must stop.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, on the issues of the environment, subsidies for solar energy, EVs, and water conservation via landscape modifications have become popular and extensively used. Do you agree with these policies, or do you see them as a form of income redistribution?
And that's me again.
Yes.
I'm going to answer that how I think I understood it. An EV is an electric vehicle. My wife and I own one. We own one gas vehicle, one electric. The EV is a smart car. I like it. But what I like better is choice. If you want one, go get one. Programs that, other than from the dealer who's going to give me a savings, are not appropriate. We should do our homework, we should do our research, and we should have choice. Again, we see way too much. This is a great example of government, again, overreaching what it was intended to do, to reach into every part of our life and try and channel us into certain areas. We should have a little part of us that just senses that and says, red flag, I don't want to be channeled. I want to value my liberty, I want to value my freedom, and I want my choice. And that's how I would answer that.
Juliene?
Yeah, I think one particularly egregious issue with funding coming in to push these programs is how quickly we moved to do it. And we didn't wait for data. Now that we are seeing how everybody flipping their strip into concrete or gravel is affecting how much heat the earth holds, and we, instead of encouraging native plants or other types of xeriscaping, it was just rip it all out and put in turf, and that brings secondary problems as well. And now, because it was sold to us as a global catastrophe problem, there are some people who are married to these solutions that we're now finding out aren't working very well. We didn't allow the solution, the proposed solution, to be out there, evaluated by people from all fields, evaluated by the people who were interested in implementing that, and wait and see what happens. And everybody got worked up, and everybody almost religiously is married to these, we have to save the planet right now solutions. And we're finding that they were not good solutions at all. So I, from what I understand, appreciate nuclear power, and I wish that the environmentalists were willing to look at that option at least before shutting it down and only going to solar.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is on immigration. Recognizing that immigration is a federal issue, what can the state do with regard to illegal immigration, and should state resources be granted to illegal aliens?
That's me first, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really liked the idea behind Trevor Lee's HB 88 that he tried to run this year, which would have cut off a lot of programs from undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants. And when I think of either the tax breaks we could initiate if we were only covering benefits for citizens, or there's another way it could go where more citizens could qualify if we keep the inputs the same but change who can receive an output. So I do not want Utah to be a sanctuary state. I do not want our cities passing ordinances saying that they will not cooperate with ICE. We need to recognize that the United States has borders and that those need to be respected. And so I think in those first very simple solutions of, we've picked somebody up, they're an illegal immigrant, we should at least talk to ICE. For these people who have been picked up, clearly something went wrong. I understand that the sheriffs and the police departments have little interest, at least here in Ogden, in being a very active participant in it, or at least that's not in the political winds right now. But I think we can at least cooperate in that way.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
First and foremost, we're a nation of laws. And where there are laws, and in most aspects I totally support the laws, we can have some order. If we start looking at the laws as suggestions, or the individuals who believe that they don't like the laws, they become a law unto themselves. And they start practicing that law that they think is their heart. Therefore, that becomes their law. That leads to chaos. And we've seen it. As far as an immigrant who has come across the border and not legitimately, there are wonderful, good people. And who knows, I may have had some of them work in my yard not knowing it. Nonetheless, those parents, as difficult as it is, they made a choice, they took a chance. Just like if I'm late to get somewhere and I take a chance and I go 90 miles an hour, The law comes first. If I am pulled over, I don't accelerate, I pull over and I face the consequences of the law. It's unfortunate, but the law is number one. And until that law is changed and we have common sense to change it, and I don't know that common sense is being used a lot, I believe in law and order, and that's the starting point.
Okay, thank you. And I've lost track, who's next? Is it you, Jim? Okay, all right. The next question, do you believe that Utah has a water problem? And if so, what should be the role of the state government in addressing this problem?
Do we have a water problem? Nah. It's interesting because, and I know Jill has been very, very involved in water. Quite frankly, if you've got questions and concerns on water, she has studied so hard, and I've watched her in committee meetings and other areas talking about water. We do have water issues. It's a little bit like, can we pass laws to just fix the issues? Not easily and not really. Some of the issues that we are facing need a great deal of study. And I don't, if I had the answer, you'd say Jim's our guy. But we do have problems, we do need to address it, we need to listen to the experts, and I know in one of the committee hearings I went to, there were experts addressing it, and it's wonderful to hear people that know what they're talking about. I'll just end with saying, do you know that in the southern part of Idaho, there's an aquifer underground the size of Lake Erie? I think that's fascinating. And we're one nation under God. In Ecclesiastes, it says, all rivers flow to the sea, yet the seas are not full. We've got enough water. We need to learn how to use it correctly, and we need to have a little bit of faith. But there does need to be work.
Okay, Juliene?
Some of you may have been in the CCC chat that Weber GOP has. A couple weeks ago, there was days. I don't know how time is moving anymore. But there was a photo shared that talked about how water is used in the state of Utah, and that about 82% of all water goes to farms and ranches. And it is definitely an incredibly hot topic that, the farmers use all this water that we have to grow alfalfa to ship out to China, right? It's a hot topic that people aren't happy with. And because it's a dry year, I started to get curious. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and that's a water-rich environment. And we're trying to get rid of the water, get it out of the fields before that ruins the crops. Where here, you need it and you're trying to keep it. And so what I did was I reached out to the local farm bureau, and I have a meeting with them at the end of the month because I want to understand better why alfalfa, why the way that they're irrigating. I want to understand this problem more from their perspective as well, because I'm sure that generations of Utah farmers have not been working the hard way for no reason. I trust that if they could have found the smart way to work, they would have done it. And so I want to understand that issue better, because no amount of me shortening my shower to 30 seconds is going to save the Great Salt Lake or save any of the other tributaries. But again, like Jim was saying, I trust that the world will keep running as long as we are good stewards of it.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and take your questions now. So if anybody has questions that they want to ask.
Yeah, she has some cards.
Oh, wow. Shane wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's a lot of.
Can't promise anything.
Yeah.
Better do shades.
Let me see how many follow-ups we have. I want to do those first.
Maybe you should take it down to 1 minute each, because if you want to get all questions.
So here's a follow-up.
If we have more questions, maybe we'll take it down to 1 minute. for
Yeah, we'll-
responses.
We'll limit these to 1 minute, just for the sake of time. We've got a lot of questions. I don't think we're gonna get through all of them.
Pick the easy ones.
Well, let's start with, okay, follow-up question. Juliene, you said, meet the candidates where they are. What does that look like in reality?
If I said meet the candidates where they are, I apologize. I meant the voters. Meet the voters where they are. So part of that to me is communicating in multiple ways, and whether that's sending out emails or social media to capture that younger generation. Those are two important things, but I also think being able to speak on a topic in multiple ways, where if you're trying to explain something, being able to switch to a different style of teaching, where maybe using an anecdote would help, or switching to maybe more of a Socratic method where you can ask questions where you're seeking to learn from the person in front of you. But that can get them to where you are as well. So it's just being able to communicate without only pushing one line over and over and waiting for it to bust through in their head.
Okay. So we'll go off the top here. We'll start with Jim on this one. What is your foundation for voting possible bills? Vetting. Okay.
I think, isn't constitutional is probably one of the starting points. Does it make our lives in our communities better? And is it affordable? Is it going to add to my children and their children saying, we're looking for a home outside of the state, we can't afford to live here anymore? So those are the first three filters that I would pass it to.
Super.
Okay, great, thank you. Juliene?
I have an idea that I'm really excited on about this, and it ties in with my other answer of making sure you hear from all people, because somebody who works as a plumber may have a different experience as somebody who works as a teacher. They may see something in a bill that affects them in a way it doesn't affect anybody else. And so I have an idea that I would love to implement, of essentially having a forum on a website that people can come to and add onto, and it's almost like a live pro-con list or something like that, where I'm getting the information that people in the district are sharing, the concerns that they have, the things they love about the bills, and everybody else can see it as well. Because I think sometimes when our legislators go through all the effort to learn about a bill, I'll tell you more later.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Monte for doing the time for us. He's our treasurer of the chair. Thanks, Monte.
Did all the work.
Okay. There was a lot of finance and human capital used to win this race in 2024. What is your plan to fundraise and mobilize voters to get out the vote for you? What makes you the best candidate to beat Lesser? That's Rosemary Lesser, our
That's the same question.
Who's answering?
both. So we'll go with you, Jim, first.
First of all, when Jill Coford, I asked her, what did it cost to run for the House in District 10? None of you would run. I wouldn't probably have run, not knowing some of the dynamics, but it's ridiculous how expensive it's gotten to run for a House of Representative race, and that's not good. That means that the people we're talking about caucusing to try and get to run for office, if they ask the question, well, what does it cost? And I'm talking, correct me if I'm wrong, over $200,000. That's a problem. That needs to start coming back too. So how am I gonna fundraise? I've got a wooden bowl, I'm gonna hold it in my hand, and I'm gonna say, please serve more, I'm running for office. But it is going to require money.
Time.
Go ahead, oh, you have to
Julian?
answer the other part.
One benefit of Jim and I both being new to this race, I think Rosemary Lesser's excited about that. I think she's very happy that she doesn't have to try to repeat and win from last time. She's run this race 3 or 4 times, or been in the position. And so my hope partially is that the Democrats will relax, sit back, and worry about another race, thinking that she has it on lock. But again, I think the ability in this race to reach the 35% of the district that's unaffiliated is essential. We cannot, in this race, win just by reaching the Republicans. We have to be able to communicate with the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Dad, I know I'm out of order, but I have a question that is just killing me. The $200,000 that you said it took to win the race for District 10, if it's costing that kind of money to win a race, why is it costing that kind of money to win the race? What is the benefit involved for the candidate that's willing to spend $200,000 on a House seat for District 10? What is the benefit for that? Why is it costing that much money?
There is an individual here that could answer that most authoritatively.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the
Joe
question now.
Cofer.
Yeah, and maybe we can address that at the end,
Okay.
because I don't wanna take away from the candidates.
That's fine.
but,
Because we had to flip the House. That's why we needed it. We're the only ones that had Democrat, and we had to flip the House to Republican, right, Jill? It was worth it. Well, go ahead.
So, but I think part of that is that we have to match the Democrats, and they're getting a lot of money, and we now know that they get through nefarious means, but we won't delve into it. Okay. The next question, Juliene, I believe it's your turn. How would the concept of federalism play into your time as a representative, and how would you help guide Utah to a stronger position of state sovereignty under that principle?
The slogan that I've been campaigning under so far is live local. I think that the government that should be most particular and most affect your daily life is the one right next to you. And one of the reasons I believe that is because I think it is a beautiful thing when Ogden is its own city, Park City is its own city, Provo is its own city, and people can find the best place for them. If you aren't happy with Ogden, if you can move to another city and find your right place there, that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's true with states as well. It's not the greatest campaign line ever, but I've lived in 6 different states. So I've seen a lot of diversity, and I love Utah.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Well, the first thing I guess that comes to mind is the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. And people have lost that perspective. We need to remember that states' rights are first, that they need to be strengthened, they need to be empowered, and everything comes from us. We're the ones who vote. We need to educate people enough to know that voting for people who will support the rights of states to be, they're not sovereign, but they are driving the federal government, not the other way around.
Okay, great, thank you. What are your plans or views on reducing property taxes? Do you support transparency and/or accountability about the state budget? And Jim will start.
Property taxes make me mad. I get my property tax bill and it has tripled in, a number of years, but it's tripled. It isn't like there is a stopgap on property tax. And it becomes way too convenient. Having been a businessman, if I wanted more revenue, I had to have a better idea, I had to have better service, I had to basically do that in order to bring more revenue in. The counties, the municipalities say, we want to do this, and we're just going to raise all of your taxes. And it's too easy for them. And they get people who are interested in those things to vote. That's the formula that we were warned will be the demise of our freedom, is when you can start to vote stuff for yourself, and property tax is teetering on that. And I'm all in favor of looking for ways to get rid of it.
Great, thank you. Juliene?
About half of the property taxes goes to schools, and schools are being asked to do too much. And they're being asked to do that by society out of a place of empathy. So schools are no longer just educating our children, they are feeding them. And there are, other things they're doing. There are dozens of full-time employees in each school district who look for food to feed kids in the summer, Christmas presents, clothing, taking care of every need a child has. And so I really liked the taxpayer bill of rights that was presented this last session as well, that would have required any tax increase larger than the CPI to be approved by the voters. There are good things about that, there are bad things about it, but I think when taxes are paying for so much more than just the essentials, I want people to be behind and supportive of those increases.
Okay, thank you. Juliene? The state of Utah has increasingly taken control of local policies such as home construction, homelessness, and infrastructure. Should this continue, or should the state hand power over to cities and counties, even at the risk of liberal cities doing things we don't like?
I'm still learning about exactly how this all operates, because the cities are given their authority here in Utah by the state. And so there are a lot of things where the state wants to make sure they don't have a runaway locality, county, city. And I appreciate that. But like I said earlier, I think it is great when people pick how they want to live and they can find people like them and live in that way, as long as it's not going to come and affect how everybody else is living. So I really would love for these statewide mandates to go away, or be only the most important essential ones, instead of turning Utah into a conglomerate.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, first of all, if you have a real shortage of housing, the price of houses are going to continue to go up. There needs to be some opportunity for common sense developers to develop housing for keeping the identity of our communities. We don't want to put up something that doesn't fit in a certain community, but also young people especially have to have options for housing. If housing is all at this level, or it's too hard to increase the supply, the costs are going to stay right up here. It needs a lot of research, but basically the state shouldn't be deciding if a community's leaning left or right. That's not right. And the individual communities ought to be given freedoms to direct their communities and build what works for their communities, having elected smart people.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, we'll start with you on this one. It's kind of small writing, it's a lot, so bear with me.
Shane.
On March 27th, here in our district, Ogden police attempted to stop a stolen vehicle operated by a pair of 14-year-old boys The attempted stop resulted in a high-speed pursuit in which the stolen vehicle struck a vehicle carrying 8 passengers, 2 adults and 6 children. The impact ejected an 11-year-old, killing him on impact, and resulted in the brain death and subsequent removal, thank you, of his 7-year-old brother. Under current Utah law, the state of Utah is completely unable to charge the 2 14-year-old boys operating the stolen vehicle as adults. Do you believe the Utah code ought to be changed in this respect?
First of all, if not all of us, most of us have heard that extremely sad tale. And having lost a son in a car accident, I know the grief that individuals go through when they lose their family members. Certainly, there needs to be allowance for a space that those individuals are held accountable for what has taken place. And the ordinances don't address it.
Juliene?
There's a big part of me that says if a child is old enough to decide their gender and change their body, then they need to be held accountable for all of their actions. We also all know that children need time to grow up, and that at 14 you feel like an adult and you feel ready to take on the world, but you're not, and there's time that needs to happen. And so at 14, I think with a crime like this, there's certainly consideration for a longer consequence, or maybe there should be stricter consequences in a lot of cases with these 14-year-olds. I don't know the perfect answer.
Okay, thank you. It is a tough one that tears at the heartstrings, right? So, Juliene, what will you do differently than your opponent that will help you beat Rosemary Lesser?
There's a lot that Jim and I have in common. We're both conservatives, we're both going the convention route, so I think we share a lot of those principles, and I think we both want to work hard and we both want to represent District 10. What I can say about why I think I can win the race is that identity is I think going to be important in this race, and that funds are transferable, but identity is not. I think I've spent a lot of time in left-leaning spaces, in blue spaces. I've had to learn to communicate well with people who do not agree with me, and I think that's going to be key in this race.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
First of all, in 27 days I'll be 70. I know that surprises you. I look more like 50. How many of you are getting the jokes? What's your sign? First of all, my reach is longer. I have lived within this district my entire life. I know people through that experience, and I think first my reach is longer. My experience, with all due respect to anyone, is deeper. I've started a business, I've raised a family, I've got grandkids, I've got a deep experience that will make me a great candidate should I be elected. But probably most importantly, I have a guiding light, a North Star, and it's conservatism, and it's what we all stand for. And Rosemary does not have that. And we need to ignite the passion for that in those unaffiliated folks.
Okay.
Okay, we have like 2 more minutes before 7:30. I
Yeah,
wanted 1
so
hour, guys.
I think, we have more questions, but we just don't have
It's
the
up-
time for
it's
them.
up to
So
you
I
guys.
think we'll end now on this note.
We have prepared a duet.
Oh, please.
Well, I would like to see that.
As long as you don't hear it.
Just want to thank everyone for coming and participating, and I'm sure that the candidates would love to take your questions privately, but we do have time constraints here. Again, thank you, Juliene and Jim, for making yourselves available to us. This is exactly how government is supposed to operate, and I think everyone here is pretty much against the signature path, or they wouldn't be here, doing their part to represent their neighbors.